Do you know that the apple sitting in your market, your store, or your grocery shelf, where does it actually come from? And through what mysterious journey does it reach you? You probably think it was plucked from a tree just a few days ago, but the reality is far more shocking than that. I know. That sounds impossible. But here is the thing. The global food supply chain does not run on luck or coincidence. It runs on a science so precise, so quietly powerful, that most people walk past it every single day without ever suspecting a thing. The freshness you see, the shine, the firmness when you press it with your thumb, every single one of those details is engineered. In this world of invisible systems, it is 100% possible that the apple you are eating today was harvested months ago, maybe even last year. And yet here it sits, perfect, unbothered, as if time never touched it. Today I am going to pull back that curtain. We are going to walk through the technology, the biology, the logistics, and yes, the business psychology that keeps a piece of fruit looking alive long after nature intended it to die. CTA. If understanding the hidden science and business tactics behind the food you eat every day matters to you, then subscribe to Global Food Chain Supply right now and hit the bell icon. Because what you are about to learn will change the way you look at every single thing in your kitchen. The link is right below this video. Go hit it now and let's get into it. Here is a simple fact that changes everything once you really sit with it. Apples grow once a year. Hunger does not. Every orchard in the Northern Hemisphere, the United States, Europe, China, reaches peak harvest somewhere between September and November, and then the trees go quiet, the fields go cold, and the world moves on to winter. But the demand? It does not care about seasons. People want apples in January, in April, in the middle of a summer heat wave in July. So what happens? The supply chain does something remarkable. The moment North America's harvest ends, it pivots to the Southern Hemisphere, Chile, South Africa, New Zealand, where the seasons run in reverse. When it is winter here, it is harvest time there. The supply chain essentially follows the sun. And the numbers behind all of this are staggering. Americans alone consume 10 billion pounds of apples every year. That is not a number nature could sustain on its own. That is a number that required an entirely new system. A global relay race where one hemisphere hands the baton to another so your fruit bowl is never empty. But here is the part most people never think about. This relay is not automatic. It is actively managed, minute by minute. If Chile gets an unexpected frost, if a South African crop underperforms, traders in Washington are already releasing stored supply into the market before most consumers even notice a price shift. The people running the system are not just logistics managers. They are playing global chess, and they are very, very good at it. So here is the question that actually keeps me up at night. How does a piece of fruit, something that was alive, growing, breathing on a tree, stay fresh for 12 months? The answer is called controlled atmosphere storage. And once you understand what it actually does, you will never look at a storage room the same way again. Normal air is 21% oxygen. That oxygen is what drives the ripening process. It is what turns a green banana yellow, what softens a hard peach, what eventually turns your forgotten apple into something you throw away. Oxygen is the engine of decay. Inside a CA storage facility, and these are massive airtight steel rooms, sealed so completely that no air gets in or out, engineers pull the oxygen level down to just 1 or 2%. At that point, the apple's metabolism essentially flatlines. It is not dead, but it is not really living either. It exists in a kind of suspended state, somewhere between the two. I always think about it this way. If you walked into one of those rooms, you would be unconscious in under a minute. The same environment that would kill you is what saves the apple. Now here is the part that most people, even people in the food industry, overlook. Apples produce their own ripening signal. It is a gas called ethylene, and every piece of fruit releases it naturally. It is the biological alarm clock that says, the time has come. Start breaking down. You have seen this in action if you have ever put a ripe banana next to other fruit and watched everything around it age faster. That is ethylene doing exactly what it was designed to do. Inside CA storage, engineers run what are called ethylene scrubbers, filters that continuously pull this gas out of the air before it can trigger anything. The apple is not just holding its breath. Its own internal clock has been silenced. All of that, the cooling, the nitrogen maintenance, the sensors, the scrubbers, the monitoring, is expensive, deeply expensive. and every dollar of that cost gets passed forward. Which is exactly why that out-of-season apple at your grocery store costs twice what a seasonal one does. Now comes the part of this story that I find genuinely jaw-dropping, not because of the scale, but because of how much can go wrong. Getting an apple from an orchard in Washington state to a shelf in New York is a 3,000-mile operation that has almost no room for error. It starts with reefer trucks, refrigerated vehicles that maintain a precise temperature window of 32 to 36 degrees Fahrenheit for the entire journey. Not approximately, precisely, because it is not just about cold, it is about humidity too. If the moisture inside the truck drops even slightly, the apple's skin begins to dehydrate. It cracks microscopically from the inside, and a customer who picks up a soft apple puts it right back down. The real vulnerability comes at the ports. At a major port like Seattle or Savannah, a 48-hour delay does not just mean paperwork problems. It means thousands of units of inventory sitting in a container at the edge of their shelf life. This is why experienced logistics managers do not just track shipping schedules. They monitor live weather systems, port congestion data, and fuel price movements simultaneously. One miscalculation compounds into the next, and that shine on the apple, the one that catches the light and makes you reach for it, that is not natural. When apples go through the washing and sorting line, the wax that the tree itself produced gets stripped away. So the industry replaces it. A thin coating of shellac or canaba wax goes on every apple before it reaches the store. That same canaba wax is in your car polish. The same shellac is in certain nail products. Regulators have cleared it as safe, but the first time I came across this, I genuinely had to pause and process it. Because nobody tells you. You just assume the shine is natural, and the industry is perfectly happy for you to keep assuming that. I want to shift gears here, because as someone who runs a business, this is the section that hits differently for me. 1 in 5 apples never makes it. Roughly 20% of the total harvest is lost to bruising, temperature failures, transit damage and spoilage, before a single customer ever sees it. That is not a rounding error. That is a structural cost built into the entire system, and it is hidden inside the price of every apple that does sell. When you pick up a premium apple and wonder why it costs what it costs, you are not just paying for that one apple, you are subsidizing the journey of every apple that did not make it. Retailers manage this through a practice called FIFO, first in, first out. The oldest stock always goes to the front of the shelf. Always. This is not laziness or coincidence. It is a deliberate rotation system that, if abandoned for even a few days, creates losses that cannot be recovered. But the piece of this that I find most fascinating is the psychology. The fruit aisle in your supermarket is not designed for your nutrition. It is designed for your emotional response. The mist sprayers creating tiny water droplets on the surface. That triggers a deep-seated instinct that says fresh, clean, just picked. The warm overhead lighting? It makes the reds deeper and the yellows richer. The placement at arm height, right where your hand naturally falls? Research consistently shows that physical contact with a product significantly increases the likelihood of purchase. You are not making a rational decision when you pick up that apple. You are responding to a carefully built environment. And the people who designed that environment spent years studying exactly how you behave when you think no one is watching. The farmer, by the way, typically sees somewhere between 10 and 15 cents of every dollar you spend. The rest goes into storage, logistics, shrinkage, packaging, and retail margin. That gap between what the grower earns and what the consumer pays is where the real business lives. I want to end with something honest. None of this means you should stop eating apples. CA storage is approved by every major food safety body in the world. The wax is safe. The ethylene scrubbing is a natural process. This system exists because someone, somewhere, figured out how to make sure that the hard work of a farmer in Washington state could reach a family in New York in February and still be worth eating. But I think there is something valuable in knowing. Because the moment you understand what goes into keeping that apple on your shelf, you stop seeing it as just a piece of fruit. You see the scientist who understood biology well enough to pause it. The truck driver who held that temperature across 3,000 miles through the night. The port worker who made sure the ship left on time. The retailer who quietly rotated the shelf so you always got something worth eating. The ordinary world is far less ordinary than it appears. Every single thing around us, the food, the systems, the shelves, has a master architect's logic running underneath it. Once you start seeing it, you cannot stop. Stay with me. There is a lot more to uncover.